lawyer on X at Von Spakovsky. Hans, welcome to the show. Did you get to watch that the display yesterday from Anthony Fauci at that Senate hearing?
Boy, it was quite something, wasn't it? And, you know, what's so interesting about it is, I actually pulled up the pardon that was signed by Joe Biden. Well, either him or his auto pen. And it's a very broad pardon. And it covers the period of 2014 through the day of the pardon, which was issued the day before the inauguration of Donald Trump. So if he's being asked questions about what occurred during that time period, he has no valid excuse for claiming the Fifth Amendment, because he can't be criminally prosecuted by the federal government for anything he did during that period of time. As you know, however, he did plead the Fifth. He could be prosecuted if he lies during that testimony, because obviously the pardon doesn't cover that. But just because you don't want to answer a question, that is not a valid reason for asserting the Fifth Amendment. And as you know, Senator Paul has said he's going to hold him in contempt, get him held in contempt.
Yeah, I think, they said before that hearing was over that they've already scheduled the vote to hold him in contempt for next week. We're speaking with Hans von Spakovsky right now. Is contempt a slap on the wrist? Are there any actual consequences that come from his performance yesterday, where he pled the Fifth over and over and over again? And also, will there be a bipartisan need to hold him in contempt in order for that to actually go through?
Well, the Democrats clearly are going to vote against it, but hopefully all the Republicans will vote in favor. There's actually a federal statute on this, and if you remember Lois Lerner,
yes,
IRS official who was targeting all the conservative organizations and did the same thing, took the Fifth Amendment, refused to answer questions. She was held in contempt. And what happens under that federal law is Congress sends the formal contempt vote over to the U.S. Department of Justice, and the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, because that's where the contempt occurred, is supposed to take that contempt citation before a federal grand jury so that the person can be prosecuted. And the potential punishment is a $1,000 fine and between 1 month and a year in jail. So, yeah, there are potential consequences, but it will depend on two things. One, can they get the vote to hold him in contempt? And two, will the Justice Department enforce the contempt citation in court? You may recall that with Lois Lerner, the Obama Justice Department refused to enforce the contempt citation.
Hans von Spakovsky speaking with us right now. A lot of people are questioning or maybe explaining the repeated Fifth Amendment claims by Fauci yesterday, saying that while he has been pardoned from federal crimes during that period of time, that he is not immune to state charges that could potentially be brought. Is there any accuracy to that? Hans, can you hear us okay? I think we lost Hans there. Let's see if we can reconnect with him here in just a minute. I am interested in that element of the pardon specifically, because if he goes in front of, this is one of the things regarding the conviction that Donald Trump did in fact receive in New York, that there were questions like, can he pardon himself from his conviction in New York? And the truth of the matter is it's a state crime. So it would have to go to Governor Hochul, of course, of New York to pardon him or offer him clemency or whatever it might be. And of course, that wasn't going to happen. But the difference between the federal courts and the state courts is significant. And if there were instances where potentially something could be brought, a charge against Anthony Fauci in a state court, like with the Attorney General Catherine Hanaway here in the state of Missouri, because there were crimes committed against Missourians, maybe his testimony there yesterday could have implicated him in those types of crimes. We got Hans von Spakovsky back here on the show with us. Hans, that's the kind of question to you: was there any risk in his testimony being open and free and clear under the umbrella of that Biden pardon, where things that he said could potentially implicate him, bring charges from any of the states in our union?
Yeah, it's important for people to remember that a federal pardon by the president only pardons you and prevents federal prosecutions. It doesn't in any way prevent a state prosecution.
Well, if I become a punching bag, I'm a punching bag. But if I become a punching bag...
Sorry about that. We got a lot of technical issues happening here.
The problem with a state prosecution is it is extremely difficult for states to prosecute a federal official who is acting within the scope of his duties. And in any kind of criminal prosecution by a state government, Fauci would obviously be claiming that, look, everything I did as an official of the federal government, all within the scope of my duties with the National Institute of Health. So state prosecutions are extremely difficult. Like I said, the thing he could be prosecuted for is lying under oath before that hearing. But look, you and I both know the reason he took the Fifth Amendment, because his diaries have come out. And his diaries show that during the entire COVID pandemic, he was lying. He was lying to the public, lying to Congress about it, and he doesn't want to have to admit that. I mean, the question I would be asking him if I was a senator is, well, are you lying now or were you lying then?
Yeah, exactly. The lie has already occurred. The question is just confirm which one was truth. And it's like two truths and a lie, but with the nation's health and public safety. Hans, one other question that I did have for you regarding the auto pen question. I remember when the emails were revealed that showed that a lot of these pardons were maybe done through email, not directly with the president of the United States. He signed but one of those pardons, and it was his son's pardon. So he seemed to have a mental awareness that that pardon was going to happen. But there are quite a few other ones that did get the auto pen treatment from Joe Biden. It seems as though we played a clip from President Trump a little bit earlier talking about that presidential pardon power is pretty significant. It's pretty powerful. Is it even worth the time and the effort to explore the validity of the auto pen pardons that came from Joe Biden?
No, for two reasons. One, there's no way that any of the White House aides, the people who worked in the White House, worked for Biden, who were involved in this, you and I both know that none of them would ever testify truthfully that Biden didn't know what he was doing when it came to these pardons. And no federal judge is going to want to get into a case in which he or she is being directed to make a judgment on whether the former president of the United States was mentally capable at the time he either signed the pardon or directed folks to have it signed with his auto pen. I mean, there's just no federal judge that's going to be willing to accept a case like that.
Yeah, seems like maybe an attempt to make a lot of political hay that's not going to materialize in anything really measurable. Hans, before we go, I just want to give you the opportunity here. You watched the Fauci testimony yesterday. It was abysmal. I just wonder if Americans are looking for accountability, the lies, the deception that was presented maybe willfully or maybe ignorantly, but absolutely arrogantly to the American people amidst the COVID 2020 years and then those that followed. Is there accountability waiting in any wing area, or do we just have to look and reflect on history and say we're just not going to allow this to happen again?
I'm afraid it's the latter. I don't think there's any way to criminally prosecute him for what he did. And if anything, those diaries show that he is an arrogant charlatan, and that's the way he should be remembered in history.
when you say that Anthony Fauci was an arrogant charlatan, that shows how classy you are, because arrogant could have been followed by a lot of words. But Hans von Spakovsky says charlatan, and I will take note and do the same in the future. Try to replicate your class in that assessment. Hans von Spakovsky, you're always a pleasure to have on the show. Thank you for being with us again today.